Welcome. This is the first in a series of Industry Pulse interviews I'll be conducting with Gold Coast CEOs, talking about their business, what's been happening in the last 12 months and how they view the market for them going forward into 2020. Today I'm with Virginia Walker, the CEO of Momentum Collective. Hi Virginia.
Hi Jeff, it's great to be with you.
How are you?
Yeah, great.
Good.
How are you doing?
Tell me a little bit about the business. How long has it been going for? What does the business actually do and what markets do they work in?
Oh, well, thanks for the question. Momentum's been around quite some time, over 40 years. We work from Coffs Harbour in the south through to mid-Gold Coast, based in Coolangatta. We have a range of services. We have a very strong NDIS business, the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So we provide services to people living with a disability. We also have homelessness services, domestic violence, mental health programs, youth programs, and assisted disability employment. So you can appreciate it's a very wide-ranging business.
Yep. And tell me, in terms of the business, have you seen a lot of changes over the last 12 months?
Oh yes. So I think it wouldn't be a secret to anybody who reads any form of press that the NDIS has been quite an introduction for us as a society. So it's been progressively rolled out state by state, but it continues to have its teething problems. Yeah. At its heart, it puts the control back into the hands of those living with a disability, which is a fabulous thing. Yeah. Yes. So where programs used to be something you applied for, now a participant will get a package and then they will have choice of control as about who they get to provide those services. For us as a provider, that completely changes our business model. So where we used to have funding provided for a particular cohort, now we are effectively needing to attract and demonstrate to potential participants that we can help them, that we are the best provider to work with them. So it really changes everything. We need to be marketing ourselves more. We need to be explaining ourselves more, and of course, it fundamentally changes our cash flow. Yeah,
indeed. How long have you been the CEO for Momentum?
It's how many? No, it's actually months. It's not. So I was previously on the board, and then our previous CEO left, and I took up the interim position. And then decided to make it a more permanent thing earlier this year. So I've been in this role from about early November last year.
Excellent. And how's it going?
I am enjoying it thoroughly.
Good.
We are really making a lot of progress. My background is in corporate world and particularly change. I've often been in and around organisational change, team change. I have a passion for leadership and change, and so this role was sort of ideal for me.
Terrific.
So we are making a lot of headway in terms of redefining our business model. How do we need to set ourselves up financially? How do we need to set ourselves up organisationally? How do we get back to our values to live with this new world?
Yeah. And tell me, with the NDIS, obviously that's been a big change in the business. How has that affected staff? Have you had to put on new staff, or have you had to retrain people? And has anybody fallen off the back of the bus because of this?
I guess NDIS itself, as I said, the biggest change really is the commercial side of it. So that where you used to be able to be somewhat certain about what funding you had to deliver programs, now you have to be more certain that you deliver services with a particular financial outcome. So in the average world productize, you need to have services that you understand whether you derive a profit or in this world a net income. Profit's still probably not the most accepted word in the
in a not-for-profit space,
in a for-purpose world. So we try and use net income, or I try and alter my language a little bit. Have we lost people? One of the things I started was going back to our values. We have 5 core values, which are, and our values are trust and respect, working well together, innovation, well-being, and there's always one that you can't remember, and I will refer to my chart. And being gracious.
Yeah.
You'd think I'd remember that one, wouldn't you? So we have actively spent time and energy living those values, demonstrating those values, making everything we did as we've changed things to be values driven. And what that has meant is certain people have chosen to leave the organisation.
Yeah. So you have lost staff along the way.
We have lost staff along the way, but that's actually part of the change journey.
Indeed.
And you want people in your team who are living your values, who identify with your values.
Yeah.
And as we move forward, we are finding that that's actually really helping us move through change.
Excellent.
So when we've done a recent series of engagement workshops, feedback's extremely positive.
Excellent, because you're showing an interest in these people at the same time.
Absolutely, and they want, people want to be involved in creating their future and how it's going to affect them, and their ideas to be heard. And why not?
Yeah.
Great ideas come from everywhere.
I agree. Yep. Tell me, with, I guess, the changes within the business and new business model, have you had to adopt new systems and processes and procedures? And if so, has the training sort of been rolled out from there as well?
Yes, well, the biggest thing we had to do in adapting to the NDIS world is to understand much more precisely where our costs lay.
Yeah.
We have over 460 staff. A lot of them are part-time, but that's a lot of people that you have to know what they're spending their time on and whether whether the income is lined up with those costs.
Yeah.
And so we've implemented a system called CareLink, which allows people to track their rosters. They can see their rosters, they can keep their notes in that system, and it's enabled us to have a much clearer view of where all of those activities and costs lie. That has been a very big implementation, massive change.
Yeah.
There was a lot
Did
of
people
manuals.
feel they were being checked though? Did they think that they were being checked because of that, or were they quite accepting that was just part of the process?
I think it's a real mixed bag, Jeff. With technology, you've got the early adopters that can't wait for it all to be implemented, and those that go, "You've got to be joking! I'm never going to do that." Yeah. Encouragingly, now when I speak to new employees, they often remark how useful they find it to be able to check their rosters without going into an office.
Yeah.
And so that always happens, that technology that's there when someone joins, they accept, and that's just part of the new world.
That's just part of the new world.
And so yes, there's been a lot of positives, but it hasn't been a completely smooth journey, as these things often aren't.
Yeah. This was a question I was going to ask at the start, but I'll ask it now. When you started with the business, how did you see the business? Like, what was the big issues for you straight up, and what was the culture like?
Yes, I had the benefit of having been on the board for a year, but I found a lot of stuff that I had no idea of when I was on the board, so that was an eye-opener. The biggest issue was we had cash flow issues when I took over the interim role, and of course that was the highest priority. And so, but as we tackled those issues, we had to do it in a way that was going to bring people with us. There was a lot of fear, not the least which there was another organisation within this sector that had gone into administration a few months earlier, so a lot of fear. And so that defined how we went about what we did.
So how did you alleviate that fear? Like,
steady hand.
Very good.
The first thing was making sure that there was no dramatic reaction or decisions that didn't seem like they'd been made with any thought or logic. I used to say, think consequences. So very deliberate decision making, very deliberate engagement. And then the next thing I did was introduce a program called What's on Your Mind.
Very good.
And I am available once a fortnight on the phone line for anybody to ring in from across the organisation, and they can tell me what's on their mind, and they can ask me what's on my mind. And I complement that with, every few months I will then do a physical what's on your mind, so go out and be accessible.
And see the troops.
So,
That's excellent.
and it's because the phone call was like, well, what's going to happen with this information. Right? So when people can see you face to face, they decide more easily whether they're going to trust you and tell you things.
Yep. So when you started in the job to where it is right now, what have you seen the changes within the business and for that matter, the culture? How has that changed as well?
We are concentrating heavily on the cultural change because that's actually how we will be able to deal with anything that the market throws at us, really. And so the changes have been significant there. So the level of trust, the level of engagement, the freedom with which people will now express ideas and express concerns is chalk and cheese.
Excellent.
No comparison. The senior leadership team is more cohesive.
Because you've now got a people and culture manager, and again, that person coming on board would have made a big difference.
A huge difference. Thank you for that, Jeff.
Yep.
Yes, we did we did work together very well to find the right person, and she's made an enormous contribution to everything that we're doing. Yes,
great.
Very significant.
Excellent. So going forward, tell me about some of the major challenges facing the business in the next, say, 12 months.
You would say right now we've kind of stabilised the ship, right? So
Excellent.
there's a sense of that we're okay, that we're clearer what we're doing and how we're doing it. We are just in the process of an org redesign. We've done a series of workshops over the last 6 to 8 weeks to make sure that we've got everybody's input and ideas and views on today. And we are just about over the next few weeks to roll out a revised org design that is more client-centric. I have 5 principles that we use, that we need to improve the client experience, that we need to improve role clarity, that we need to be more efficient because nobody tolerates inefficiency in this day and age, do they?
No.
That we need to be sustainable, both commercially but also from a delivery perspective. It's easy to burn people out in a support sector. And that we need to be aligned with the people who provide us money in the funding world, our funding bodies. And so those 5 principles have driven everything we've done this year, and they'll be what we refer to as we roll out this next stage of design. For there, we'll be focusing on growth. So I often use the analogy of that we need to make sure that the engine is working well, and then you can put higher octane fuel in it.
Yep, indeed.
And that we start to look at how we can grow and make the difference we want to make.
Yep. Tell me, CSR has been a big thing that's come up over the last 12 months in a lot of businesses. Your model, again, is it something that's really important, and has it been changed over the last 12 months?
You mean corporate
social responsibility? Yes, sorry.
I guess we are that world.
Yeah, indeed.
We are that world. We're almost the other way around. It's like, can we stay viable commercially while we deliver on our purpose?
Yeah.
It's for me, having come out of the corporate world, it's almost like a tipped on its head. Yeah. One of the things that I was at a conference recently with B1G1. They are an organisation. It's actually a movement, which looks at how do you give back. So it's buy one, give one. So when you buy something, can that organisation then give something? So it's a global movement, and it's premised on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so I've been looking at how do we position ourselves within that framework, which is a really, really powerful framework being used globally. Excellent. To guide how we leave the world a better place.
Excellent. Tell me, one of the observations I've seen over the last sort of couple of years, talking to various CEOs and chairmen, etc., it can be quite lonely at the top. Do you find that, and do you have a mentor or a person you go to as like, I've got this idea, what do you think? Is that something you do, and do you find it lonely at the top?
It's lonely, not necessarily. There are times when you can't treat your team like your peers, right? So you can't just bounce things around as freely as perhaps you would with a peer group. I have a coach, a mentor coach that I talk to weekly.
Excellent.
And some weeks I just literally go, "Rah."
Yep.
Here you are, here's what's going on in my world.
And was that somebody you reported to in your past, or
no,
you sought out?
I sought out. Before I took over this role, I actually was working in the coaching industry myself, coaching and mentoring, and so I had found this individual and have kept that relationship going. I would always do that now, having learned the benefit of that.
Yeah.
But that's just one particular aspect. I also use my board.
Yeah.
I mean, the benefit of having come off the board, we know each other reasonably well.
Yeah.
So I will say to them, it was a couple of months ago, I said, this is seriously keeping me up at night. And they said, okay, well, let's work out how we help you solve that.
Good.
So, that's the great thing about us being a small organisation. Your board is a little, can be a little less formal.
Yeah.
And I've asked them to be more involved. Can you come closer to the business? I think.
I was going to ask you, has that relationship changed from you going from a board position to the CEO? How has the relationship sort of altered, or has it altered at all?
We're much closer, actually.
Oh, that's
yeah, it's. I guess my way of working is highly collaborative, and I found, I experienced initially as a CEO that the board was too distant, and I was saying, we're not big enough for you to be that far away.
Yeah.
I think we need to find a way of you engaging with the business that doesn't compromise your role as a director.
Yeah.
So, for example, we did a piece of strategy work, and I asked them to be on the working group to help guide the working group that involved both people who work for me as well as board members, and that was very powerful.
And they adopted that quite
absolutely,
literally.
and it's given them such insight into that area of the business. We've benefited enormously from the experience that those board members had. And the way that they can steer their way through things, and it's great, and it's created a much closer working relationship, which I really value.
Excellent. Virginia, thank you very much for your time. This has been a great sort of session. I hope you've enjoyed the interview, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you, Jeff, and I appreciate all the support that you've provided during this journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Virginia. That was a great interview with Virginia Walker, CEO of Momentum Collective. What she did talk about was a number of great positives that have been happening in their business. One of the great things I learnt from the interview was her involvement with the board. Having been on the board herself and moving into the CEO role is not always easy. However, what Virginia has done with the board is actually ask them to be more participative in the business, something that a lot of organisations don't do. But with Virginia, she's actually asked the board to get more involved, and they've gratefully accepted the opportunity and taken it up with relish. That's a terrific thing for people to do. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please stay tuned for our next Industry Pulse interview with another great Gold Coast CEO.